Caterling family and hospitality lovers. I hope everybody's doing wonderful on this beautiful Thursday. I am so grateful and happy to be here. This is my second workshop on this platform, Hospitality Bites. I'm Zana Devine. And today, and so before I start jumping in, you guys, I do want to point out a quick reminder. I am really a huge fan of people interacting with me on this call. So I love questions. I'm a sucker for questions. This is really an interactional kind of like workshop. This isn't me knowing it all, telling you. This is us figuring it out together. And I'm just sharing my brain with you and my long-term experiences in the world of hospitality. And so, you know, for me, it's always wonderful if we can do this as a collective thing. I work better on questions in all honesty, and I love when we engage with each other. So that's just that. But today I would like to jump in. And my workshops, by the way, are very quick and sweet and short. They don't take up a whole day of yours. It's kind of like just a in and out thing. But so today I picked a topic about upselling and how do we create memorable moments for our guests, right? Because in a sense, we're not just selling a product, which is, you know, it could be a bottle of wine, it could be a dish, it could be a coffee, it could be a dessert, it could be a catering outdoors, it could be a room, it could be a banquet situation or what have you. It's really about the experience that we're trying to sell to our guests, right? And so I want to jump into certain things where, you know, how do we really create memorable experiences and how do we really do talk about upselling, right? Because service excellence really doesn't mean necessarily that we're selling the highest product or that we're selling the most amount of revenue, even though, of course, upselling is about making revenue and driving ROI, but it's not necessarily the driver. And what I mean by that is, you know, we are not really here to, in a sense, portray something of like, okay, you have to buy a cocktail that costs you this and this much money in order to get this and this experience. So I'm always coming from, how do we turn a $10 cocktail, which really, in a sense, costs us $10 to prepare, but how do we turn that into a $50 memory and a $50 experience? And so that's kind of like the overall idea that I would love to talk to you about, because really, in a sense, everything lies in the experience that we're experiencing. And we all notice from ourselves whenever we go somewhere and we're being approached with kindness and care, we are happy to pay an up price. We are happy to pay a little bit more just because we felt like we're receiving something better, bigger in return. But in this case, when we talk about hospitality, this should not be the mindset of any owner. This shouldn't really be a mindset of anybody that runs a floor, because you see, guests, they always have the choice to go really anywhere. And my question to the whole collective right now would be, how do you, as somebody that runs any kind of hospitality establishment, and that could be really anything, it could be a small motel, it could be a hotel, it could be a casino, it could be a country club, it could be a restaurant, it could be a food truck, it could be a catering. How do you really, in your own establishment, are so different than anybody else on the block? And so that, in a sense, today is going to be my my topic today. And you know, I also would like to basically jump right into ideas of what is really the best ways and the best strategies of upselling, right? And so one of those things is always that, first of all, nobody should ask anything. And what I mean is, especially when it comes to the guests are not having necessarily the expectation or the willingness nor the drive to really sit there and ask for things. And what I mean by that, just imagine you're going to a restaurant right now, or you're checking into a hotel, and now you're standing in front of the receptionist and you're ready to check in, right? Wouldn't it be so wonderful for the receptionist to actually come back to you and really ask you specific things, such as, how was your drive here? Did you see, by the way, on your drive when you drove here, this and this scenery? Because, it's, again, you're creating a memorable experience. So the moment when you have a chance to talk to a guest or interact with a guest, you are, in a sense, taking over. You are the entertainment. You are the driver of the car, right? And of course, it's about taking care of their needs, but really, in order for you to take care of somebody's needs, you want to ask specific questions that are catered to your establishment. And so when we sit in a restaurant and a waiter approaches us, right, we don't want to hear, in a sense, okay, I've never been here before, and tell me what is so good here. We don't want to hear then that the waiter is saying, well, everything is good here. No, what we are expecting right now to hear is certain things like how does this pair with that? Or what is your taste for this? Or my personal taste when it comes to this glass of wine or that glass of wine or this dish or this appetizer is really like that. And then also asking specific questions. What are you in the mood for today? Do you have like a big hunger? Are you light hungry? Do you feel like more like a salad or a pasta or like something heavy? And so my point here is really that we should not let our guests tell us. We should be the one to ask the guests anything that we can gather to make their experience much lighter. Because you got to remember, people come to restaurants and hotels sometimes for several reasons. Sometimes it's a really busy week or a business meeting and they have so much on their mind. They don't want to do the chit-chatting. All they want is in and out, quick information. Where is this? Where is that? And they want to be on their way. But sometimes they also come in for emotional comfort, right? Something went wrong at work, a deal didn't go through, they had an argument with their spouse, or something severe happened in their family circle. So when our staff is being trained on really catering to those kind of needs and kind of like picking up the guests where they are, also a little bit emotionally, and then making it easier on the guest to just ask versus having the guest tell you, it just makes the guest kind of feel like, okay, I don't need to sit here and explain my whole life story. And I don't like a room next to the elevator. And I don't like a room next to the ice machine. I want to be, this. Like if I'm being asked those kind of questions, it makes me feel like the person that is checking me in or taking my order is actually caring for me. So I hope that makes sense. But I do have some questions in the chat. Hi, Patricia. Hi. Hi, Gabe. Gabe just said hi to Patricia. That's nice. Hi, you guys. It's nice for you to join me. And so, so that's really what I'm kind of after here, right? And so also when we talk about buying products in a sense, right? Because in the end, the hospitality industry is really about selling and products. And products could be really anything, you guys. It could be as simple as a glass of wine that you have on your menu. It could be the appetizer. It could be the amazing bottled water that you offer. It could be the dessert. It could be the aperitif, the digestif. It could be the candles that you produce in your own home for the guests. It could be your own pasta sauce. It could be your own olive oil that you press. Like it could be all those things that I'm now talking about when I'm saying products, right? It's really that, again, this isn't just you displaying it on the shelf and hoping that a guest walks by and says, oh, you're selling that? Can I buy a jar of your homemade tomato sauce? This is an opportunity for you to really properly train your guests on product knowledge. And so anything that you sell in your home is really for sale. But if your servers really don't know how to use correct verbiage to even tell the guests that those things are for sale, this is really when moments can make or break certain things, right? Because in a sense, when we are not training our staff enough to really emphasize on like, this is something that you can say when you're talking about the pasta that we make homemade. And by the way, did you know? We also produce our homemade pasta sauce in our home. Or by the way, we also produce our homemade olive oil. You gotta find and you gotta create opportunities within the selling strategies when you train your staff for them to drop these golden nuggets when they're interacting with your guests. This is not for your guests to ask your server, because when you rely on the guests asking your servers, or your servers are just order takers, trust me when I tell you, you're missing so much on upselling opportunities and you're really letting money go out of the door, right? Let me see. I have another question. Patricia just said hi. She's so cute. I have a question. Great. How can upselling be framed as improving the guest experience rather than increasing spend? So that's exactly what I'm saying. You can improve by your verbiage. That's as simple as that, because upselling strategies are really about how you present a product, right? Obviously, it depends on what industry you are, but when we talk specifically about hospitality, combine the upselling framing with the products that you already have on your hand. Just use your menu. Better memorize the menu, because if you have, let's say, 7 glasses by the wine, red and white, 4 glasses of rosé, 4 glasses of some kind of champagne. Those are things that I would suggest are really imperative to train your servers on, because this is how you also create conversation with your guests on at the table, right? Because there's a difference between just an order taker and just somebody that entertains somebody at the table. And so the way you would phrase those questions is you incorporate those in your training. Now, some waiters, hostesses, managers, it comes easy to them. It comes easy to them to just conversate with the guests on the floor and find their little flow and go with the flow and kind of already know when to back up, when to hone in, when to step back, right? And so, but those are all parts that you as an owner, you as a manager, you need to take the time to create those opportunities for your servers. Because you got to remember, there's 2 things that can be amazing, but also awful. One thing is, if you are not giving your servers the proper training on how do I really talk about the products that I personally, for instance, have no idea about, right? So let's say I'm a waiter and I'm just starting in the industry, or I've been a waiter and I didn't really work at super high fancy upscale places where there's a lot of champagne served or a lot of table services being done or a lot of, certain things that are in a sense only kind of done in more higher or fine dining places. Don't you think that this waiter would benefit so much more also from you as the manager or your training manager or whoever you have in place for this kind of thing, is when they take your wait staff to the side and actually show them, this is how you really talk about this specific champagne. This is really how you talk about this specific wine. And 2 things can also happen there. If you don't allow your staff really to taste the products that they're actually trying to sell or that your driver is to sell, then how would they know how they taste, right? Like, you cannot expect of a waiter that only starts in the industry to sell you a bottle of champagne when they don't know how to open up a bottle of champagne, when they personally never tasted champagne, or when they have no idea about the grape, where it's from, the vintage, what does it taste good with or something. And so again, guests are not just buying products, they're buying the moment with you at the table. And great moments to be created like that are really, in all honesty, is just personalized flows, professional verbiage, and teaching also your staff a little bit to understand body language. Because we can tell so much about one's body language, right? We can tell if a guest is really open to like, hey, and chit-chatting, and they want to chat with you, and they interact with the waiter, or they interact with the host, or, and then we also see sometimes guests are kind of like withdrawn. They have maybe their newspaper with you or their laptop, or they're just constantly on their phone. This might be not a good idea to just really go and have your waiters chit chat up a storm with them, because they just really want to be left alone in peace and just enjoy the meal, right? But when we talk about, products and creating moments, this is a really fantastic opportunity for you to really create that hospitality verbiage. Like there's one way to say, oh yeah, I like this wine and this is a good wine, versus I'm teaching my servers to say, this pairs beautifully with that, or may I offer you a taste of this and this wine, or just asking again specific questions. Going back to the first point, when you ask specific questions, the answers come easier. Like if you teach your servers to really interact with your guests, such as, how do you feel today? What are you in the mood for? Or even better, the icebreaker, the almost best icebreaker ever is, have you ever been here before? Right? Because this is a great opportunity for us to build somewhat of a trust feeling, but also build kind of like that first memorable experience. Because the overall goal is always to remember that we want every single guest that ever entered our establishment to, of course, come back, but even better, to talk positively about our experience, right? And guests are really relaxed in a sense when transparency plays a big role too. That's just a side note, you know. So even if your waiters maybe don't have the proper answer, or your managers or your hostesses when we answer the phones, it's always an okay thing to say, I'm so sorry, I do not have the answer in this moment. However, I'm happy to find out for you. Can I call you back? Right? And even that step, can I make the effort to call you back? Can I make the effort to tell you about the menu, my products? Can I make the effort to actually create an experience for you? And I hope that makes sense. But that's kind of like really what I'm after, right? Another question, what are some simple scripts examples catering team members can use to upsell without sounding pushy? That's a wonderful question. May I offer is always a great start to any upselling strategy. May I offer? Have you considered? Have you ever tried? You know, those are always great sentences to start an upselling strategy, right? Versus when you train your staff, or when staff has the idea, now that I'm approaching the table, I want to talk about right away my most expensive thing on the dish, my most expensive meat, my most expensive cut, my most expensive, you know, lobster tail, or you know, seafood dish, or you know, my most expensive wine, or you know, any liquor from the bar. That's usually where people feel like they're being pushed onto something. But when you train your servers of the actual interaction with the guest to really create that warmth in the beginning, guests are happy to listen to your opinion. Guests are happy to go by your suggestions, because now they're like, oh my God, at least I don't have to think about that. Oh yeah, I really don't know what I want to eat, but you described the salad so wonderful in such a way that I could really imagine while you were talking, I could see a picture how the salad is going to be placed in front of me, or a dish or something. And so simple scripts could always be certain things as like, would you care for, right? Or another one that I want to throw in here is just crosses my mind is when we, for instance, already have a glass of wine on the table, or your guests already had a cocktail. A big pet peeve of mine is seriously when I hear somebody say, would you like another? Can I bring you another one? I honestly don't like that, because it goes back to the actual correct hospitality, kind, inviting, warm verbiage, which should be more of an idea of to say, would you like me to refresh your cocktail? May I offer you a glass of wine with your dinner? Not even another or additional, but just may I offer you a glass of wine? Because that word another and more could really come across as like, okay, I had another one. Oh my God, you know, and now imagine you hear another one 3 times during your evening having dinner. It doesn't feel good to some. And to me, it doesn't sound professional. So I always prefer to say, may I refresh your cocktail? May I offer you a glass of wine with your dinner, with your appetizer, with your dessert? Can I offer you a digestif? And yeah, I hope that made sense with the script too. But you know, when we talk about also creating moments, really, it's really all about training the staff too, right? Like if our staff is well trained, it's almost like we're taking a burden off of our staff too, because now, and regardless of what situation they're going to be placed in, wherever they are, they don't feel pressured of, oh my God, I don't have the answer. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to talk about this dish. I don't know how to talk about this wine. But if we allow them a ground foundation of like, here, look, this is what you can say in situations like these, or this is maybe a strategy that you can use, and you allow your staff to kind of like play also with their own personality, because you see, we can create scripts for everybody and anything. We can create scripts for establishments and customize that. And that's great for instance, phone, you know, how do we pick up the phone, and how do we talk on the phone, and how we make a sale on the phone. Scripts like that are wonderful for that. But when we talk about person to person, we got to remember that hospitality is a people person business. And if I am not allowing my staff to be creative enough to allow their personality to flow into their daily routine, then I'm also almost clipping their wings. And that's exactly what shouldn't happen. Because every person that chooses to be in hospitality obviously chooses this industry for specific reasons. Now, some of them are really there for just a good paycheck because, you can make great money being really in a established restaurant or hotel. You can obviously earn good income, but a lot of them are also really there just because they love the interaction with the guests. They love the fast pace. They love the every day is something different, especially when you work at a hotel. You just never know what you're going to expect, right? You just never know who you're going to meet, what's going to happen, what, function is happening today. And so we want to always allow our staff also to really implement their own personality to bring to the table this beautiful creation that they really are, right? We can just help them by how do we fine tune upselling techniques? How do we talk about guests? How do we talk to guests? And how do we really sell on the floor without sounding pushy? I saw that we had another question. I just want to move my slide a little bit. Sorry. I'm just going to do it this way. Yeah. So that's kind of like, what my take on that is. But I see is another question. When is the best time in the sales process to introduce an upsell? You know what? Upselling starts at the very beginning. This is such a wonderful question. Whoever asked this, I love it. So upselling, I tell you right now, starts already with your host. It starts already with, matter of fact, I'm going to take it a step back. It starts already with the system. When you have a system in place where you allow your guests to book a table for themselves, like, booking table or something, or open table, that's really when it already starts. But then when we talk now, people old school calling a restaurant or calling a hotel to make a reservation, it's already starting there too, because you've got to train your staff to really, again, through specific questions, understand the need of the guest, right? Because if a guest calls and says, I want to book a room for this and this date, great, that's wonderful. Thank you, first of all, that you're choosing our hotel. Thank you that you took the time to call. Already giving them something that makes sense, that really confirms to them, I made a good choice actually calling this place because I'm even being thanked for just calling, right? And then to say, are you going to be traveling by yourself? Are you going to have somebody traveling with you? Do you prefer a bigger room maybe? Do you have a lot of luggage? Like, it's all those things that you need to train your staff to already ask at the beginning in order then for the upsell to easily be executed. And when we talk about upselling on the floor, when we're, for instance, in a restaurant, it already starts with your water. Almost every restaurant, at least where I go and eat, always offers bottled water. Everybody offers ice water, but also everybody offers bottled water. And so here's a great way of training already your busboys, because the dynamic here is that our busboys are bringing the water right at the beginning, and they're bringing the bread or the chips or whatever we start off with, right? But here's a suggestion. If you have a restaurant, do not train your busboys to do that at the beginning. Don't do that. You know why? Because you're missing an upselling opportunity. If you train your busboys to hold back and listen to, in a sense, the server, which is really in charge of the table, until they had the moment to go and introduce themselves and maybe introduce the concept and just say friendly, a quick hello. This is a first upselling opportunity for your staff to say, would you like me to offer you bottled water? I can offer still water or sparkling water. And then whatever still, whatever sparkling you have, throw those at the guest. Now, if the guest comes back and says, it's okay, thank you, I prefer ice water, no problem at all, right? But that already is your first upselling opportunity at the table. And bottles of waters are usually between $7 and $11. So that's already, and now imagine they're only drinking bottle of waters. They're sitting there for 2 hours. That's going to be at least a minimum between 2 or 3 bottles of waters, depending how many people and how much water they're drinking. So those extra $35 to $40 just from water would be missed if your busboys right away run to the table with the ice water, right away run with the table with the appetizer, with the free bread or the free chips, without the waiter even getting the opportunity to actually sell an appetizer. Because wouldn't it make more sense to sell a nice caprese salad and then bring a little extra ciabatta bread versus, oh, I'm just going to bring you my ciabatta bread that you're going to be in 10 minutes a little bit full, so you just have room for your actual course. Now I'm missing an upselling opportunity. I hope that makes sense. What great question. Thank you so much, by the way. What if the server cashier doesn't feel like they have the self-confidence? They say, are you shy or quiet? That's also a great question, because you see, this question I will take back to the original process. So when you are in the middle of interviewing your staff, these are the things that you want to pay attention to, right? I mean, I'm not saying let's not give shy or quiet people an opportunity. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I am saying to really voice in the interview already that if they are being interviewed for a position that does require to really interact with the public, to ask them the question, are you comfortable? How do you feel? Have you ever done this before? What is your situation in this and that? And already right away throw out a role play idea in the interview. Make them serve you in this moment. Pretend that you are the guest and you have a question, and let them see how they handle that. And then ask a question. What if this happens in real life? How would you feel? And let the applicant actually answer that for you. Now, if somebody really steps to you and says, I'm confident, I can handle this, I've never done this, I'm nervous, but I want to, go for it. Because you know what? This is the drive. We're looking for driven people that have fire inside. And we're also looking for people to grow within the industry. So does anybody have to be perfect entering the industry? Absolutely not. But it has to be explained to them that hospitality is a people-person interactional business, right? This isn't just you sitting in an office. Well, maybe if you work at the reservation somewhere back, or you work in sales tucked in your office or something, maybe then. But if you're, applying to be on the front of the house on the floor, these situations should be talked over at the beginning. But if you happen to have somebody that got hired and here they are shy and quiet and they don't know what to do, building their self-confidence can always start with encouragement. Always. I'm sure when they showed up on time that day or the next day, this is a great opportunity to encourage them and say, hey, you know what? I see you're still a little bit shy, but thank you so much for showing up on time. I really appreciate you being on time at work. And also thank you that your uniform is nice and clean, and that you're not chewing gum on the floor. Thank you that you're not using your phone on the floor in work time. Like, those are all great ways of encouraging. Words of encouragement, right? Words of affirmation are a wonderful way of making somebody feel confident. But the same way, if you see a person that doesn't do such an amazing job or did something that wasn't beneficial either to the guest or the business, then you need to be transparent with them too, obviously in a respectful, calm, friendly manner, right? And in the right setting. But that needs to be said too, because people cannot grow if you're not being honest with them. Nobody gets to grow. You're not winning, they're not winning. If you're holding back with information that they should be knowing, but you're uncomfortable speaking on that, then you're not giving them the proper opportunity to grow. And also, you're not giving yourself to really have another team member in your team that started off with the shy, quiet personality and ends up to be the most amazing server on the floor, right? So words of encouragement, I would say, are huge in general here to kind of like get that shyness out of somebody, and also offer them maybe to shadow them. If you feel somebody really isn't as secure on your floor, offer to shadow with somebody. Have one of your senior servers, have one of your senior people on the floor, have them, put them by their side, kind of like a little mentor for 1 or 2 days, one, if they don't feel confident enough or not secure, or even better, have your manager, like spend a little bit extra time with them. Right. Great question, by the way. Ooh, another one. How do we ensure consistency in upselling across different team members and locations? So upselling across is always a good thing. I call it cross-training. And how do we do that is very simple. You basically train everybody in your staff to have the very same knowledge. It's as simple as that. So what I mean by that is if you hire a host, help the host to really learn also the menu, the full menu that the servers know. When you hire a bartender, help your bartender to really understand all the position numbers on the floor, all the table numbers, all sections on your floor. Vice versa, when you have a server, help them to learn all the cocktails that the bartenders are making and help them also to learn what the hostess's job is. Not as a full-time job, but have cross trainings here and there. Either incorporate that in the training time when they're already going through their training and make them be a day or two with the host, a day or two with the bartender. And you do that with everybody in your team. This will give you two things. One thing is it will ensure you as the owner that no matter what happens on your floor, you can always pull somebody from any position and place them in the position where the position is really needed, which is not to say that when somebody is being hired as a server, bartender, or host, or busboy, or food runner, or manager, or what have you, that they constantly do that. This is just to ensure that your business is running flawlessly. And you explaining this to your staff will give your staff another opportunity of learn more, gain more knowledge. So that means whatever knowledge they're learning, even though they didn't apply to be a bartender yet, in your establishment, they learned how to make the 5 or 6 most common cocktails, standard cocktails that any bar serves. Isn't it a great knowing idea for them to feel like, wow, I never knew how to make this cocktail, but now I know. So you see, what you do is you're helping people to grow, and you also are the seed in that growing process. You're basically planting the seed, but also you're helping yourself as an owner. Because again, if a host, for instance, calls out, or a server or a bartender, and you have enough servers or you have enough bartenders for your shift, you can simply communicate to your staff and be like, hey, you guys, I need somebody who just for 2, 3, 4 hours just to take that spot of such and such because they just called out, they got sick, they what have you, right? And so cross training is wonderful. And when you do that now, when you have several locations, and hopefully you run your locations very, very universal, meaning that in every location, guests are receiving the very same service. Nothing is different here than it is over here. You can actually also communicate and ask your staff maybe to hop to different locations if they're open to that. Of course, you can't make your staff do that, because if I apply to work in a location X and now I'm being asked to drive to location Y and Z, which is so further out of my way, clearly there has to be some more communication of compensation and all of that stuff. But if somebody's willing to do that, that's a great opportunity for you to have a universal staff, excuse me, that works together and understands all of your standards from every single department. And so I hope that answered the question. Do you think incentives for staff help or hurt? Absolutely. Oh my God. Thank you, Patricia. This is such a wonderful question. Absolutely will it help it. 1,000,000,000% incentives. Listen, everybody loves a freebie. Can I be real? Everybody loves a freebie. I love a freebie. You love a freebie. Everybody loves a little freebie, right? And so incentives are a driver for staff to perform higher, better, quicker, faster. Not using this as a manipulative tool, but using it as a tool of creating something that is a specific bonus program for your staff in this establishment. Because think about it. You have 10 waiters, right? And you tell your 10 waiters, okay, I'll give you guys 3 months, 1 month, whatever you want to come up with, time, and I will look on everybody's revenue within that time frame, who sold the most. Whoever sold the most of, for instance, a specific bottle of wine, a specific special, or the overall liquor, overall food and beverage. You create it however you want to. Whoever sells the most, I will, for instance, give you a free paid day. What do you mean free paid day? First of all, nobody does that ever, anywhere. So now imagine you throwing some intense incentives like that out. Or you say, I'll give you a free dinner in the choice of your most favorite restaurant, $250 on a Visa gift card. Go take your boo, go for dinner, it's on me, right? Or you throw out a nice bottle of wine, a really nice fancy bottle of wine, like a really good one with a nice vintage and a nice taste and, a little bit pricier too, you know, or if you have a hotel, you get to stay, if you have multiple locations, you get to stay free in one of my locations, for instance, for a night, food, beverage, all included, go wild, enjoy yourself, you know. I think it's a great way of helping your staff to grow, helping your staff to produce, and also helping your staff to really see that you matter, that they matter to you. Because to me, $250, for instance, will not hurt me if this waiter just pulled in a specific amount of revenue for me. What is $250? Like, they, in a sense, put their heart and their soul in learning my products, learning my verbiage, being kind, being respectful, treating every guest with kindness and respect. Why wouldn't they deserve an incentive back? Now, the incentives, you can come up, however you prefer, whatever your budget is too, because not everybody has the same budget. Not everybody has the same, legal rights to do certain things. In some states, maybe a paid free day is maybe not allowed. I mean, I don't know. I don't write the law. I'm just throwing stuff out there that I know would make my stuff happy. I know that worked for me when I was a manager, when I, when I ran staff, across the globe, or when I was even a waiter back in the days, what really made me drive, and yeah, so absolutely. Such a wonderful question. Thank you so much, Patricia. I truly appreciate you for that. Yeah, and so when we talk about this whole idea of like seamless upselling and strategies, it's exactly those things. It's creating a wow factor. It's not just creating a wow factor for your staff by, for instance, incentives, but it's also creating a wow factor for your guests, because listen, they see now. They see how you really train your staff behind the scenes. They see that everybody is working together like an oiled machine. Nobody's saying, this is not my section, that's not my section, I cannot take care of this, I cannot take care of that. Guests don't care. Nobody cares. If I'm a guest in a restaurant, if I'm a guest at a hotel and I walk through the lobby and I need attention, do I really care that this person is actually from the banquets, but they happen to walk through the lobby? I don't care, nor do I know. What I know in this moment as a guest is I need my need fixed, right? And so wouldn't it be wonderful then in that moment to have your staff really create that wow factor and be like, oh, wow, yeah, sure, no problem. I guide you to the right person. And now imagine the banquet server stops, takes a moment to guide this guest to the right location where they're getting their need filled or their questions answered. This is what I'm saying when we create wow factors, right? We as owners and managers and investors, we have to think outside of the box. And we also have to allow our staff to receive knowledge. Like all this gatekeeping and I know better and I'm not going to share what I know and all of that. I don't know if that's so beneficial these days, in all honesty, because we have so much things that we can now use. Wouldn't it be so much better to just work together and collaborate and share our brains and minds and strategies with each other and come up with amazing things that actually our guests are benefiting from? And I think, this is really always a question is, why did you become, a hospitality owner? What was your why? What was your reasoning, right? And so fundamentally, I almost want to say that so many would say, because I love serving. I love making people happy, right? I love making people smile. And so those wow factors are exactly those things that we can help to accomplish on a daily basis. And talent retention is exactly what we just shortly just talked about. When your staff really does feel like that they're being, appreciated and heard and catered to and understood and valued, this is exactly where people, why would they leave somewhere? Why would they go anywhere? There's no need. They're being taken care of in their own home, which is your home, because you know who they are, you know what they can, you have friendly, respectful conversations with them when they are not performing the way they should, and we're still respecting that we all are humans. We all go through certain things, and I understand when the curtain opens and you come to work, I understand that, you unfortunately chose a business where personal manners do have to take a back seat in the time of your shift. But still, we as people, we need to allow other people to have their moments too, and it's okay to have a bad day, and it's okay not to perform always the best and the highest and the whatever. And this is why encouragement is so, so imperative, right? And I think this is exactly what the result of this all is too, is like when we allow our people to take ownership and we teach them our secrets, and we teach them really our ways of how we're running our own home. I think this is a great way of your staff really feeling like a part of something, right? Because this is really what it is. We're all in this big boat hospitality together. Nobody's by themselves. And it doesn't matter if you're a dishwasher, it doesn't matter if you're a busboy or food runner, if you're a GM, if you're an investor, it doesn't matter. You need people to make this work. Everybody needs everybody. And hospitality is such a wonderful industry to allow those cultures and those different personalities to come together and to, marinate and have a little fire from different cultures. That's the best to me. And so, yeah, that's really like how I think, we thrive and we create happy environments where people are allowed to be authentic, but also where people are learning. Right? Hospitality is so much to learn. There's so much to grow into. It's about numbers, it's about people, it's about strategies, it's about sales. I can go on and on. Hospitality is such a broad idea and broad industry of so many things. And you can, hone in on and learn and grow and do all those things. And so, yeah. That's kind of like what I had to share today, you guys. I'm again so grateful to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful catering platform. I'm so happy that I got the opportunity to be, a coach here. And obviously, you can book me. You can, scan my code. I'm just a scan away. I'm happy to help. Hospitality is in my veins. And until then, I would say I see you next month. And stay rooted, stay grounded, and always stay connected to love, strongest force in the universe.